Right, what's happening YouTube? I have a few questions that was asked of me of basically how I set up a Chromecast in the car. This is a Audi Quattro. It's a B8.5. I tried this in the wife's car and everything, and it all works fine as well. So it's one of these ones where it's whatever vehicle you have, whatever type of connection that you have, whatever, you could probably do something very similar anyway, right? But for the purpose of the video, this is a B8.5 A4, and I just wanted to show you where people are setting up car plays and all sorts of stuff where you have to dismount all of this here, rewire it. You know, there's a massive amount of potential for damaging parts. I don't know, it's up to yourself, right? But if you want a less intrusive but yet just as effective setup, I mean, this is what I did anyway, right? So I did a cheaper version, if you want to call it, but it doesn't cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds and stuff, right? So basically, I've obviously got my screen here, which is the MMI setup and such like, right? But I've installed a Chromecast, so you can use a Firestick. You could use, I don't know, like a Raspberry Pi. You could use loads of different things as long as you've got a HDMI style setup or RCA type thing. Okay, so the basics of it is, right, any of these in the know, you'll know what an AMI connector is, which is one of these guys here, right, which is you've got your AMI, which is in your glove box. Well, mine is here. Sometimes it's in people's armrests and stuff like that, right? So you need to get not the cheap version now, right? You need because I bought a cheap version and it didn't work, as in the audio worked but the video didn't work. Okay, so it cost me about £30 on eBay, and I left a link on Flex's video feedback comments and stuff like that. But basically, on one end you've got the AMI connection, right, which obviously connects into your glove box here, or mine anyway. On the other end you've got RCA, which is your video and your audio, right? So in order to convert the HDMI over to RCA, you need one of these guys in here, which I'm hoping you might be able to see. Yeah, so that's on eBay, right? That was only about a fiver, but you have to get the correct direction, which is HDMI to AVI. Okay, it has a switch on the box which allows you to go 720 or 1080p. Now this screen here only works at 720 by 480. So on that little box there, the HDMI to AVI, you have to have that set to 720. Otherwise, this here screen will, you know, go fuzzy and whatever, because it's too high of a rate. So basically, the Chromecast connects to the HDMI to AVI. That then connects to the cable, which is the AMI to, let's say, RCA, right? Both of these connections are females, so you need a little double adapter. So you got a male to male, you know, connector that goes on both ends of here, and that's the main brunt of it anyway, right? But in that corner, I have the other way. You've obviously got your, say, in the ashtray here, right? You've obviously got one of these here cigarette lighters, but I bought a USB one which has, you know, two outputs, and that is installed in that corner over there. And then I have that fed off a tapped fuse, which is running off ignition. So as you see, nothing's on right now, all this sort of stuff, right? So if I start the car, I'll give you an example of how this works, right? And this will work on an Android, right, if you use a hotspot and the same phone to cast and stuff like that. But see, the likes of iPhones, they don't seem to like hotspot and cast at the same time. So if you have an iPhone, you're going to have to do something similar to what I have at the minute, which is I have an EE dongle here, right, which came with my broadband anyway, which is quite convenient for the scenario. So that basically means it's like having a router in the car. Some people have On their MMIs in here, they would have a SIM card adapter, right? Which then means that the car goes wireless as well. You could use that as well if you want. But basically what I'm using is this guy here. And that's basically the same as having a router in your car, essentially, you know. But in order to set up your Chromecast, to make it work in the car, you need to first set up the Chromecast inside your house, let's say, for instance, right? Where, let's say your hub comes from, well, in the UK here we got BT, right? So you'll see like BT XY BYZ, whatever the hell name it's called, right? You need to specify that to something unique for temporary setup, just to get your Chromecast sorted. Now my Chromecast is set up for an SSID, which is, let's say, Quattro S line, and I have my own password, which I won't obviously advise at the minute, but it's let's just say it's ABC123 or something like that as a password, okay, for your Wi-Fi. So when you're in the house, set up your home hub or whatever to whatever name and whatever password that you want it to be. Check that it's casting to it, etc, etc. Once you then know that it's all working, you take the Chromecast out of your house, put it into that the converter, which is just here. I don't know whether you can see it properly. There's the Chromecast going in. That converts over to RCA. There's the male connections on both ends to connect the females. So what ends up happening then is, on your phone, if that's the way you're going to do it, which is a hotspot, you would, if it's Android, as I say, right, if you set that up to be the exact same name and the exact same password for what the Chromecast is expecting to connect to, so i.e. it would be Quattro S line and let's say ABC123 as a password, right? If you use an iPhone, you're going to need a second phone because they don't like to cast and hotspot at the same time. I've tested it and it doesn't seem to like to work. On Android it works no problem, but if you have one of these type of dongles, as I say, this guy right here, whatever, something similar, then you just use that as a temporary hub or whatever, right? So to give you an example, right, because I tried to make a video and cast at the same time on this phone, but of course the camera stopped, so I have a secondary phone here. So I'll give you an example of how this works here, okay? Now this saves you an absolute fortune in regards to, let me just stop this beeping here. Right, as you can see, the Chromecast is now live because the ignition's now on. Just a heads up for you, right? I have my car disabled for the second that the car starts, it automatically stop is turned off unless I want to turn it on if I'm in traffic or whatever, right? The reason I do that is because that's running off ignition. So if I come up to a traffic light, then everything just stops, as in the Chromecast has to be reset up again, as in, you know, if you're watching a video or whatever you're doing or playing music or whatever, right, it's going to disconnect. So I leave mine automatically disabled or whatever, but that's in VCVS, which is a different thing, okay? Right, so to show you here anyway, so go into media, and then obviously you got your sources, so you can see your sources here, right? So the external video input is the AMI connection that you have here, which is this guy, right? So when you connect that cable, you'll see external video input, and there it is. There's the Chromecast connected to this here, right? Which this phone also is connected to the same connection, okay? So let me just put the password in here in this phone and I'll show you how this works. Very difficult with one hand. Right, so let's get through. Of course they're trying to get you to YouTube Premium. So there's Flex's video, right? Anybody that doesn't know this guy or whatever, anyway, very, very good YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. So you got the Flex Garage or whatever, okay? Right, so if I press cast, right, let me see if I can do this here. If I press cast, there we go. Audi Quattro TV. That's the name of the device, okay? So, there we go. There's YouTube. There we go. There's Mr. Flex himself, huh?
Hey, what's up guys? It's Flex and welcome back. So the infotainment system on my 2015 Audi A4 is pretty outdated. I mean, I could play CDs, I could play music.
So there you go, there's a prime example of it. So just to give you the heads up again, mine's a right hand drive, so if you're in America or whatever like that, I would go to this side over here where your fuse probably is, okay? You'll see the ignition fuse and the live fuse in behind here, so you just pop that side off or whatever and you'll see your fuses, right? A fuse tapper is basically where you take the fuse out of an ignition, you put in the fuse tapper, you put the original fuse back in, and then that jumper's alive, which you then feed to the USB socket, and the ground, then you just need to find the ground, which would be the likes of a bolt on the I use a bolt on the side where the fuses are as well, so that's your ground and that's your live. So to show you an example here, right, what happens, so let's just say I stop the car, whatever, that a traffic light, whatever, then boom, it's gone. That's why I turned the start stop off or whatever, okay? So yes, if your fuse tapper on the left hand side, which then leads to the USB, which then, one sec, so fuse tapper that heads to the USB, it's grounded, that gives you your power on ignition. Then that obviously powers your Chromecast and your HDMI to AVI converter, and after that then it's just basically, it's simple anyway, you just connect everything up. But like I say, the connection for the Chromecast and all has to be the exact same as what your hotspot is, etc. okay? So that sort of thing I'm sure you might know yourself, as in how to set up a hotspot and such like, okay? But again, like, let me see, I mean, that was Flex's video. I'll just put on something completely random here, right? Again, quite difficult with one hand. Right, there's YouTube at the minute. So what have we got? There's somebody making a racket with some Audis as well, right? So right, as you can see, that's on the phone, right? So if I press cast Audi Quattro TV, don't worry about the screen, the sun did that. You could let him have it for 1 week and look what he does. But anyway, there you go. So it's up to yourself, guys, whether you want to install something like this. I think it's much easier, it's less intrusive, and it's not that I couldn't possibly, you know, wire in that CarPlay. Now again, this doesn't have touchscreen obviously, right, but your phone does. So it's one of these ones where it's up to you whether you want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars or pounds or whatever it might be, wherever you live. But I just find this much easier anyway, so hopefully it'll help somebody out. And it's really not difficult. Like, I already had the Chromecast, the cable was like 30 quid. Chromecast originally was something like 30 quid, so that's like, what, 60. The HDMI adapter is only like 5 quid. And what was it? It was the USB, that was like 12 quid or whatever, right? So then the adapters, what, like maybe £2-3 for the male or the male to male adapters as well, so you can connect two of these ends together and stuff like that, you know. So I mean, it's less than £100 anyway, but if you've already got half the stuff, you're flying. So hopefully it'll help somebody out anyway. Enjoy.